All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. What is going on? I am Brandon, and I am here with Brandon. And I'll tell you, the Seahawks are kind of making our lives a little bit easier lately. There's been not really a heck of a lot to say about this team other than that they are checking every box on their way to being a legitimate contender, but we will try to find something to talk about today regardless. So how you doing today, Brandon?
Hey man, I was always cloud nine when the good times were rolling like this. We've been through enough of the somewhat lowly times to be able to be very appreciative of this.
Yeah, and we haven't really had the low time in a while. There are a lot of people in this fan base who don't remember the last time this team was really awful. So, I mean, it's nice, right? It's been a nice run. You look at all these other teams that are awful all the time, and it does remind you that we've had it good for the last, I'd say 25 years. It's been very, very little lean years.
Yeah, I was having a discussion over on a syndicate channel earlier this week about this with the statue and who deserves the statue up front first out there in front of Hawk Stadium, and I come back to Paul Allen for just the reasons you gave, being that this has been a situation that started with him buying the team and making sure that he was committed to building a winner. You and I've covered this sport enough to realize that not all owners operate from the same mentality that Paul Allen did. And the reason that you get to have this, the sisters carried on that legacy, is because ultimately trying to win and becoming a winner is the most important thing. You're not serving two masters of winning and money, or winning and trying to put this on or that. You're winning. It's got to be your ultimately the thing that is the singular driving force. And if it is, you got a much better chance to building up that winner as they have. And I think that they've done such a good job of staying in that lane, of that being the guiding light over everything else. And when tough decisions come down the track, and the few times they have in the 25 years, major decisions with the owners have to come in, they do. And this is why we've been able to continue this consistency. And now we're going through our potential here, Brendan. You look at this for one ownership group, you're lucky to have one guy, where, Dallas Cowboys back in the 70s had Landry, or you get your one coach, your one run for your ownership time period. We've had three now separate runs with Paul Allen here and the Allen ownership. And that's, again, just to laud them and give them credence and credit for that. Just an unbelievable job on their part.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And this year looks like it's going to be a little bit better than the typical Seahawks year, though. 7-2, coming off your second straight blowout victory. And like I said, these games are so dominant and they're over so quickly, it's hard to even find anything to say. Like, Sam Darnold threw the ball 12 times on Sunday. He had 12 passing attempts. So I find it a little bit hard to find stuff to even talk about. But anything you want to revisit from that game in particular now that we're here on Thursday?
I think, as you say, it gets hard on some of this because you jump out to things so quickly in this game, and you did it in a lot of the same fashion you've done prior. I mean, mostly on the passing to begin things. I think that the great thing was that defensively you stayed locked in for the most part. You did kind of close that thing out when it got a little bit unnerving a bit there as things were starting to slide. Not that you were in danger, but they stood back up and they reclaimed a little bit of the energy there in that moment. But then I think just the fact that offensively you run for almost 200 yards when 3/4 of this game the Cardinals knew you basically were going to run the ball, and the Cardinals are not a bad run defending team. And they were missing Wilson, that's inside linebacker, but hell, we're missing our inside linebacker, so everybody's going to have their injuries here and there a little bit on that. But I thought the fact that you could run when they knew you were going to run, and going back and watching the all 22 tape, I was even much more impressed by what I was seeing from the run blocking from the Seahawks on a couple different levels. The duo blocks, and then you got the guy that climbs off the duo block, the linebacker on the second level, and they're doing it with seamless transition. The pancaking, the playing to the echo, the whistle, where you're not just trying to do the bare minimum, but you're actually getting after it. I was very impressed by that, and it felt like something that you can build upon from a performative standpoint in the run game, that there may be some more consistency coming down the line on this thing, especially, again, if some of these stacked boxes can peel off.
Right. I remember looking at some of those running plays in the second half when things really got going, and it felt like they found something in there. It felt like they found something there. And this has been one of the interesting conversation topics this week, where you see Jalen Sundle go down, and he's going to be out for a little while, by the way. We already know that. And Oluwatimi goes in there, and you know you're losing some stuff with Oluwatimi, right? There are some things that you're losing. You're losing some athleticism. You're losing some agility. But when Oluwatimi goes in there, it sure seemed like the run blocking picked up. Sure seemed like things were a little bit more powerful up front. And overall, it seemed like there were some areas where things immediately got pretty obviously better.
Yeah, there's a part of me that I've wondered. I'd be interested to hear if you're standing in the same spot on this when it comes to Sundell, where I think that these two guys came down the end of camp, and it was a tight battle between the two of them. It was neck and neck. And I think that the coaching staff ended up erring on the side of, we get more of the pure athletic fit and the upside from down the road and what Sundell will bring for us to the center position. And for that, we might have to take some lumps early on with Sundell that we would not have to take with Oluwatimi, who's more of the finished product to what he is going to be. You buying that?
Yeah, and I think they kind of were aware of that when they decided to start Sundell. I think they wanted the upside. I think they wanted the scheme fit. But I think they also probably thought that Oluwatimi, as of right now in a vacuum, is the better player. He had much more experience in the NFL. He had actually been, people forget this, I think. He was a decent player for his last year. He was not terrible. Maybe he wasn't good, but he was playable. He was fine. And I do think that they kind of made the conscious decision to, okay, we're probably going to suffer a little bit right now, but it'll pay off down the line. We're going to get a player that suits our needs better. But I do think that when you saw Oluwatimi go in this game, you did see that as of right now, he's a better player, and he'll probably always be better at some of this stuff. He's always going to be stronger, right? He's always going to be a little bit more of a, probably a little bit better of a run blocker just in general, especially when it comes to a lot of the runs we were doing in that second half, where we just kind of get behind Charbonnet and let him just use his vision. So I do wonder what the play is here. And obviously for these next couple weeks, we don't have a choice. What do you do if Oluwatimi plays well these next couple weeks and then Sundell's healthy again? What happens?
I think if it's at this level where he's got like an 80 PFF grade coming out and Sundell's been down at more of like the 32 section, and that's representative of what you see. I mean, the thing with Sundell, and you get this with some of the run game across the board in spots, specifically with Zabel, Sundell, and Bradford, most of this year, there's too many of these, not really full on whiffs, but it's that they get up there to get their hat on the defender, and the defender just slides off the block like really quickly, really seamlessly. With Olu, I think he's a little bit stickier on that type of stuff. And when I look at the whole game, yeah, Olu did a good job going in there. I don't think that he was like out there just like dominating guys. It's that these other guys too were having less of those slip type blocks, which show up over and over again in run plays at times. Right up on the guy, and he's right off of you. Can't sustain and get into that block. Zabel has a hard time on the run game. He's really good in pass pro at staying locked in. But when he gets in the run game at times, guys will just kind of slide right out of his grip a little bit. And that stopped happening as much in the second half. Guys stay locked in. Olu definitely played really well within that. I think that if he stays at this place or he's near this, I mean, even if he's a 70 graded center, that's going to be like a top 10 rated center in the sport, top 13 rated center. And that's far surpasses what Sundell gives you. I think as you're getting down the home stretch of the season, you got to put the best guy that's out there. I can understand when they didn't know how this year was going to go initially, and that you're going for the long-term upside of Sundell, and that you think you can develop into that center. I get that the thinking there, And he has gotten a little bit better here and there at times over the course of the year, to the coaching
Mhm.
staff's point on this. But I think that you're getting down the home stretch. You got to put your best dogs out there. And if Olu's ready to do this, and he looks like he's ready, thing with him is that he is just a remarkably different player from Sundell too. He's has way more time at the center position. You're right about the mobility stuff he can't do, but the thing you and I noted about him since college is Michigan asked him to do that stuff. They asked him to do all of the divergent stuff that you need to do in a zone-centric scheme from a center position. Pull in space, get to the second level, hit your reach blocks, handle one-on-ones on a nose tackle on a reach block. He would do all of that across the board at the college level. So he doesn't have mobility from how you test him, and he's not going to look fast on the field, but he's very smart, knows how to get to his spots quick, and that allows him to lay blocks that maybe his athleticism might make you think he wouldn't be able to lay.
Yeah, that's always been kind of the tricky thing here. He's not a very good athlete, but you look at the college tape over and over and over again, he's being put in those get to the second level situations and get across the field to throw this block. And he does it. He does it. And I think even when he was in Virginia, they did some of that because he started at Virginia for a while before he went to Michigan. But yeah, Michigan, that's all Michigan did for the most part, right? All those
stood out because remember the next year we watched I forget the name of the center, but the center that took over was a draft prospect the very year after we looked at Olu. And I remember us looking at the center and I was like, kind of threw me off because it was still Harbaugh's offense, but they were now just asking him to do the in the phone booth stuff with the new center that took over. Whereas Olu was really being asked to go out and expansively run the full gamut and package of what we want to do in our run game. And so it speaks to their confidence in him to do it. And that the next guy, they did not allow him to do it, that they kept him into more of that box.
Yeah, like it's like it's not just about your ability to run fast or quickly or anything like that. It's also about your balance. It's also about your ability to actually hit a moving target. And these are things that you can do without being a stellar athlete sometimes. And sometimes that's more important than just quickness.
Yeah, because it's we've certainly seen plenty of guys that do have that athleticism that, to your point, don't have the feel for it. And you mentioned Virginia and Michigan. This guy had a ton of college starts, and he was the Outland Award winner, best lineman in the country the year that he came out. So he's a guy with a pedigree and who's got a lot of seasoning out there in how he's played to give him the ability to be kind of refined in his approach.
Now, this upcoming week, and we'll talk about this Rams game plenty during this stream, of course, but it does occur to me that we're playing this Rams team that is known for doing one particular thing up front. And this year they've been doing it a good amount as well, which is stunting and twisting and having these lighter, more mobile, more agile defensive tackles, right? Guys like Braden Fisk are very, very lightweight, and they're based on quickness and agility. How do you feel about trying Oluwatimi in a game like this, where on the surface of it, you might be better off with a more agile player? Do you think this is kind of a bad matchup for Oluwatimi because of that?
No, because that's where some of his, I think, vet status as a center comes into play. I mean, one of the things about twists and loops is that it takes a center and guards who have the feel for it occurring quickly in the play so that they can get in the right position to pick it up and that they don't get confused by it. And that's one of the things where I think you'd as much have a good a chance as Sundell messing that up without his lack of experience in those kind of situations versus Olu, who's dealt with it a lot going back for many years, I'm sure. So I think he's going to be pretty well suited with it. And I mean, the thing is, it's nice to see Olu out there doing what he's doing the run game, but I do feel like his strength has been at times as a center in there. If you want to, not that there's been a great strength to his game so far. He's, like you say, he played functional last year, but he's actually been, better in the pass pro game and how he's played, or at least how he's been graded and looked at. So, that's one where I think he's actually going to be pretty good with that, in being able to handle that stuff.
Right. So, that's one of the more interesting subplots coming out of that game, because the Sundell injury was like the only bad thing that happened that whole game, it felt like. Anything else stand out to you in that game besides just that? I know that we've talked about these topics already, but again, it's just hard to focus in on something when everything goes so well, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, your defense is just playing great. You've got guys stepping up that you had hoped could develop with time. Nehemiah Pritchett going out there and doing what he did in this game, and it was only 23 snaps, but as Mike said, he had his best game of his career, which was just great to see. And as far as helping our depth out, especially not just for this year, but beyond this year, if Nehemiah can develop in that way, We're going to need to get some corners on the side of it. But Tyrese Knight stepping in and having the best game of his career when you kind of needed him to do so with Ernest Jones out. It's been very cool to see so many guys, Ty Akadas and your Drake Thomases. Every week it feels like there's a couple guys that are kind of stepping up in what they do and filling in. And we always say next man up, and it just always feels like sometimes an empty phrase when you say that. Where it's like, no, we're going to go backwards a little bit with this next man up. That's just inevitable. There's no way around it. But yeah, with Seattle this year, you have not. You have been able to, sometimes, if anything, almost get better performance when you slip these guys in there from the guy that's out there. And that just is a testament to how strong this team is, how deep this team is, but how good this team is too, Brendan.
Yeah, I think that Tyrese Knight going out there and having the game of his life, filling in for Ernest Jones was highly unexpected. I didn't see that coming at all. And it does kind of make you feel a little bit better about the linebacker depth, because maybe Knight doesn't have the mobility right now to do Will stuff, but maybe actually right now with his skill set being where it is, he'll be an adequate Mike where he doesn't have to move around quite as much. Like that definitely caught my attention that he looked so much better at Mike than Will this year after looking better at Will last year.
Yeah, I think he is a Mike by natural tendency in how where he will play at his best, but that he can play Will if he has to. And I think we've seen with Drake Thomas, it's not been about, I think it's been less about Tyrese necessarily going backwards this year, and it's more about them being so impressed by Drake and what he's brought to the table. That guy's gotten better and better every week, and he's playing strong football, and I think that they just like a lot what they're getting from him at that Will, especially because he does give you a different level as far as coverage ability from what you do get with Tyrese. But I think Tyrese could be good in there for you at the Will if you had to put him back in there, and that he could come in there. It gives us again more of that depth you have in there now for the future on this one, which is good to have. But an amazing game from him, and good for us in the future as it helps this linebacker, makes the linebacker depth look even that much better as you go forward, because it would be great if he can round into being that solid starter. And boy, he looked good. Those were 2 sacks he earned. I mean, those weren't freebies, man. Both of those 2. He had to do certain select things on both those plays to make that happen. One play he was doing the dirty work and still got the sack, which is kind of cool. Always nice when you do the dirty work, but still end up with the deal. Yeah.
So awesome stuff there. Awesome stuff, like you said, from Drake Thomas, who I think we're at the point now where I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to continue to work, but I am feeling pretty good about him being the starting Will for the rest of the season. I'm cool with it. I don't think we need to necessarily. I mean, obviously the trade deadline's already done, so there's nothing you can do. But I think we're now at the point where we can ride with him. Nope.
Sorry, I had somebody over here. 1 second.
No problem. Yeah. So awesome stuff going on there. So I think that's really about all we want to say about that one. I don't want to spend too much time on that because, again, if we wanted to talk about the good stuff coming out of that game, we'd be here talking about it for 2 hours. So, you cool turning it over to the Rams game now?
Yeah, let's flip it on over.
All right. So, this is the big one. This is possibly, and I've seen some people that are not necessarily in this media market refer to this as maybe the game of the year to this point. Maybe the biggest game of the year, going to LA, playing these Rams, both teams 7-2, both teams at the top of their division, both teams tied atop the NFC West. And it feels like the biggest Seahawks regular season game since maybe that game against the 49ers in 2019.
I think that's as far as you have to go back to see it that way. And I think that this one does even supersede that. I think if you won't even go back even further, because that 2019 team, there were cracks in that team. There was one where so many of the teams that we've had that have been good through the past few years that have won more games they've lost, even go back to Carroll time, and I'm talking late teens to now. And it was always kind of like you were trying to cover it up with some bubble gum and get a little bit of super glue on the team. And we'll add this trade deadline thing. This will fix all of this on this side. That's a gaping hole right here. It's like you had a boat that was basically taking on water, but you're just hoping that you could get it over to the shoreline before the thing sunk underneath. Whereas this team feels like you're on a yacht and you're flying across the open waters. And that's to me why it doesn't, you're right about 19 being the closest time, but I go back to it being 2012. And that second Niner game kind of where you were at with that one, where it felt like your timing was right? It might turn out to be the first Niner game that year where it was a tight game on the road against the Niners and we couldn't quite get over the top of them. But then it was the second game where we finally got them amidst that run of those 50 burgers that we had. And so I feel like that team, you could feel like at that time too, was in like this one, man, so many good things, man, so much stuff working together, man, the young guys are coming together, man, this is really feeling like it's ready to explode. That's how you feel here. And when you had those two teams that year playing each other, it did feel at times like those were your two best teams, or not that year, but even the next year where we had the conference championship and it felt like the true Super Bowl between us and the Niners. A little bit like that here, where we may really be seeing with these two teams that these are, if not the best two teams in the NFL when it's all said and done at the end of this year, that they're definitely up there and close too, which makes this matchup just all the more intriguing. It's great stylistically. Both teams are pretty healthy coming into this, so it's not going to be like you're taking advantage or they're taking advantage. It's our strength against your strength. Let's let this ride and let's see where this thing goes.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. I think we're all ready for it. I'm going to be watching this game with a large group of people that includes Norbcam, actually.
Let's go.
He's doing his annual watch along at, I think it's called Stimpy's Bar and Grill.
Okay.
I've been there the last 2 years. I'm going to be there once again for this one. Was there to see us lose to the Rams 2 years ago and was there to see us beat the Niners last year. So let's get the win streak going here.
Tell Norb I said, what's up, man?
Yeah,
let's get
I definitely will. But so to talk about this Rams team, I think it all starts with their passing attack offensively, which you go back to before the season started, you and me would sit here looking at all the Stafford stuff and feeling like this had to be the end. Like he wasn't practicing. He was inside the hyperbaric chamber in this like spaceship they had parked right outside the LA facility. It was like the Lazarus pits or something. And you felt like this had to be the end because Stafford wasn't great last year. He had taken a step back from where he was in previous years. And it just felt like this was the year it all came crashing down. And instead, he might, at least statistically, be having his best year ever. And the Rams passing attack has been mostly unstoppable this year. How are they doing it? What is their secret in LA?
Well, that's definitely some pages from the old. And I think last year was as much a representation of less of the, certainly injury stuff is the worrisome part, but as much as Stafford last year, he lost his receiving core. You know, he's throwing to Jordan Whittingham. And Atwell is his 1-2 through a lot of that year because Puka and Cooper were both dealing with injuries throughout a little bit, and they didn't have as much depth there to lean back on. But his guys are healthy this year. His offensive line's healthy, and I think that's definitely aiding in a huge way. Devontae Adams and his addition to where he gives him a true X. Last year, you hated a little bit, and we've seen this with Cooper. Cooper plays mainly for us within the slot, a little bit outside, but with him and Puka both on the field, you had sort of two slots at once when they were healthy. So now you have it more set up with the X's and O's, right? Where you got your true X, you got your true slot at that point, kind of filling in there. They're living off of the 13, 12 personnel, loving the usage of like us. There's so many mirrors between us and them. We both run West Coast offense, both run a heavy amount of the 12, 13 personnel. They're dealing with some of the similar stuff we're dealing with, which is a decently stacked box rate, decently high amount of blitzing on the back of them running that kind of system. And so the way that they've done this is off the play action mainly. They're leading the league in the highest play action rate in the NFL. And so they're keeping teams, and because they stay committed enough to the run game, you got to stay true to that play action and play the run first on it. And then they're just running a lot of, last week it was a lot of in routes and digs to especially Devontae Adams, but Puka too, where it's just take advantage of off coverage. Guy runs to depth. You sit in front. Brendan, we saw this for years with the Carroll defenses and how McVay attacked it, Shanahan too, where they have these just kind of check with me's. If you see the coverage here to this side, we're going to run this route. They're probably going to depth there, and it's going to be probably open. And last week they took advantage of Saleh's defense, really doing that to a large degree. But he's playing phenomenal, man. He still is a gunslinger back there. He still is dropping dimes all over the place. He is a guy as well, Brendan, you know, and I've talked about this often. I've mentioned this a few times this week. He is a guy that has a tendency within how he plays. If you can put him into this pickle, it's not easy to do, but if you can get them into a high volume passing approach, because he has so many throws over the course of the game that he is trying to fit into tight windows, that does give you the opportunities to make picks and interceptions on him. And it can be the difference to whether you beat him or not, because he's going to make those other throws. He's going to cut you up in other places in the game. So if he gives you the chances where he makes the mistakes, you've got to pounce. And my big example of this, Brendan, has been that first Rams game last year. 3 situations. One where Puka and Woolen are running down the field. He gets the interception on him. There's your one. The other 2 times, Ernest Jones has a ball in his hands in the middle of the field, can't quite reel it in. And then later on in the game, of course, Woolen's flat-footed, standing still, while Demarcus Robinson rushes right and past him to make the reception on the easiest pick he could hit, like Tongas this year. So you're going to get those opportunities. It's not a lot, but you will get those opportunities with them as long as you can stop them from running the ball. Now, Brendan, if he runs balanced, if it's like 30 runs and 30 passes and 30 runs in a game, not the same thing, because you're not challenging enough on those passing attempts. It's got to be more into the high volume mode to get him to make those kind of throws. So that's really a key there, because he's going to get his. He's going to make his throws in the game where it's like, man, our guy was tight in coverage. They made a sensational catch. There's not a lot you can do about that. But how you defend in this game, the tight end sets, as much as how you defend Devontae and Puka, is almost equally important on this one. Coming into, you go, well, it's the outside receivers, but it's also kind of how you're going to deal with those heavier fronts too, from the offense, how you counter that, stylistically speaking. And that'll drive as much of this outcome as anything else.
Yeah. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that we're getting the full Devontae Adams experience this weekend. I know they said they expect him to play, but he got the oblique injury, and it was an oblique injury that kept Derek Hall out for almost 3 weeks. So he may play. I'm not convinced he's going to be able to do all the things that Devontae Adams typically does. I'll say that much. So we may get a little bit of a reprieve there. And one interesting element to this game when the Seahawks are on defense, a lot of people have pointed this out. Eamon Wari might be the perfect kind of player you want as your nickel when you're going up against a guy like Puka Nacua. He's got the size and he's got the general speed to really keep up with him. And I could definitely see a guy like Eamon Wari being Puka's worst nightmare in terms of a matchup. Like in previous years, if our slot corner was Witherspoon, that's somebody that's a lot smaller than Eamon Wari, and maybe somebody that Puka feels like he can at least post up a little bit, the way that we've seen Marvin Harrison post him up a couple times when we play the Cardinals because of the size difference. But Eamon Wari is exactly the kind of guy you want against Puka, I think.
I think he could be good. I mean, his length and size and Puka being so good at changing direction could be a bit of the one thing that I'm going to be interested to watch on, because with those bigger kind of corners, when you got to flip your hips, when MRI's got to, stop here and flip here, and you got to flip back your hips the other way, that's where those smaller receivers, the guys that are smaller than the bigger corners, can take advantage of them. You see teams try to do this on Woolen a lot with the inside outside move, and get him to really get kind of stuck in that hip transition a little bit. I will say, to your point, though, Puka is a guy that does tend to be one that doesn't necessarily generate a ton of separation. His not whole thing, but a big part of what he does, he'll generate separation when he's kind of just picking on the zone defense. But if you've got him in one-on-one opportunities, he's going to make that tight contested catch, that contact catch. He'll just reel that in, where for everybody else, it's like, well, that's about a 20% chance you're going to make that catch. For him, but you get a feeling like it's a 80% chance he'll make the catch on some of those throws. And that's where Eamon Wari, with that extra size and length to get your hand into those certain spots at times, can maybe be a differentiating factor against Puka, to be able to knock those balls away where other smaller corners, to your point, can't reach in there, even though they're tight in coverage on him.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that's something that could play in our favor. Also, because of, you talked about the dig routes, which the Rams love those dig routes, which is, we really want to have Ernest Jones back for this game, because he handles those zone drops really well against dig routes in a way that I don't think we're getting the same level with a guy like Knight out there. So really hoping we get Ernest Jones this week.
Me too. I think as well, Drake Thomas does that really well. That's one of the places in coverage that shows up with him. The first fumble forced by Tyrese Knight, you're dropping Woolen into basically like a cover 2 look post snap off coverage as a corner, and then you're sliding Drake Thomas on that underneath the in cutting route in the dig. It's essentially he's there for both a bit, but you have him pull all the way out there to be able to take that away on the outside receiver as Woolen's kind of dropping to the cover 2 depth. So you do have that, a little bit of that better play, to your point, on some of those zone drops, and it's going to be on them to be really clean with it. Again, last year, Ernest Jones, where did he, he made that pick in the middle of the field. It wasn't exactly on a dig type route, but that same kind of thing where he was dropping back into the right spot there where he knew Stafford was wanting to try to hit it, and he just couldn't quite get the pick. So I think that's where you're really watching this game going, take advantage and anticipate those routes a little bit. What they do is that they get off coverage. So, the receiver's looking at him and the quarterback's looking, and they can just on the fly call it. It doesn't even have to be a route that you call in the huddle. And they know that that off coverage is so very likely to have that corner drop to depth to a cover 3 kind of look like we used to see with Carroll. So as you have the receiver run, it's like this, right? Here's the corner, here's the receiver, and he's running. That corner staying on top. All that receiver's got to do is stop and come back, and that corner's not going to have enough time because he's got to play the responsibility first of over the top to then drive on that route at all times. If you're playing it aggressive, that's one thing, but a lot of teams in this day and age still want to protect to depth, and the Rams take advantage of that with those kind of concepts.
Right. So definitely hoping we have EJ back. If I'll say this, whether or not we have Ernest Jones in this game, to me, might be the deciding factor in whether or not I'm confident that we can win this game. I think he makes that big of a difference against this particular Rams offense.
I could see that. I definitely could see that. I mean, Tyrese played great last week, but that being said, Ernest Jones is your starter for a reason out there, and he's been a very good guy for us in coverage. I mean, 3 picks this year, I think. So, you know, he's been really good for you in this way, and that's going to be a big part of this game. Look, the Rams run the ball, but they're like us. They don't necessarily run it well necessarily. They stay committed to it. So it's going to come down to how you stop the pass on this as much as anything else.
Yeah, Kyron's kind of like the black sheep of the top running back so far this year. You look at the leaders in rushing yards this year; they're all at 5 yards a carry, 5.5 yards a carry. Jonathan Taylor's at 6, 5.7, and then Kyron's there at 4.5, and everyone else around him. So it's not super efficient, but he's still having a pretty good year overall.
Yeah, he's doing good, and I think that they definitely are getting they're not getting a lot of light boxes. They're getting a lot of the heavier boxes. I do believe a little bit of the same thing that I've told about our team with this is that you deal with that. You're going to, if you deal with that on a pretty consistent basis, you're probably going to have some struggles with getting a high yard per carry average, just because teams are basically succinctly telling you that we're first taking away the run. It's part of why Matt's been so good in passing, is that's what's happened here. Is it's a little bit, again, mirroring to what's happening with us, where it's just teams are saying, we're going to do this and we're going to take this thing away from you. And it's like, oh, you're going to ask Matt Stafford to beat you. Okay. I think he can do that.
Yeah. You mentioned their 13 heavy offense where they go the 3 tight end stuff. One thing that's interesting here is Seattle is not in the habit of countering things like that by going to base. They stay in nickel. So do you think that we stay in nickel against 13, and do you think that it can match up with their 13 offense?
It's really hard to say. I would tend to think that you're going to probably try to run a little more 3-4 in this game when you get the 13 personnel. It would give you the opportunity, for instance, at times to bring out Peely as your nose and then slide Williams and Murphy as your 3-4 defensive ends. You know, they're basically playing defensive tackle alignments in that 3-4 at that point, but you could have them as sort of that. And then that gives them an opportunity to maybe give some one-on-ones in there with that a little bit. You've got your edges stacked up high, so you feel okay about doing, bringing them off the 3-4 looks of that too. So hard to say on this a little bit. Eamon Warrior's size too also changes the game on this a little bit. Back to your point a second ago about him being uniquely a matchup for Puka, but also maybe his unique size being something that can drive how you run schematically this game a little bit. What I mean by that is, if you were a nickel prior, Brendan, and you're going to get 13 personnel, there is no way you're running a slot nickel out there against that look. But do you not feel as bad about doing that because you look at Nicky Manwari as kind of a de facto linebacker anyway when he's out there with his size and what he brings, so that then drives you to feeling like you're okay to run a little bit more nickel situations at that point, because he can just come back down into the box and play like a linebacker. Hard to say on this. I think Seattle's got some flexibility with this on how they do it, and I'm not sure I know which one they're going to go with on this, because this is a unique opponent. I don't think we've faced anybody like this that provides this challenge offensively this year. Yeah,
I don't know if there's another team out there that's going 13 heavy the way the Rams are. Probably not, I would assume.
No. Very, very few teams are. Certainly a lot of teams this year with 12 personnel. This is going to set a record for 12 personnel. And Rams do a lot of 12 personnel too. But it's just an extension of they're just going more extreme in that direction that we naturally thought the NFL was kind of already shifting this year with some of the heavier offensive fronts.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot to put this up, but you put this slide together. So we're talking about the Rams offense, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this up there. Another thing with this Rams offense, I don't know if I trust their tackle play. I think it's held up well this year because of McVay and Stafford doing a good job. But I do wonder if that's a weakness that can be prodded at a little bit.
Yeah, they have been doing pretty good against pressure. A big part of that is one of the stats shown here is they're 10th in the NFL at time to throw at 2.75 seconds. So that's on the faster side of it. And so I think it's helped our offensive line this year out, Brendan. I think people want to think a little bit that just our offensive line so badass at pass protect, and they have improved. But something that can help pass protection out mightily is getting the ball out of the quarterback's hand and having a short passing attack that you can operate off the back of. So they do a good job with it in that. As you can see here with the team rushing EPA at 20th on this, that's kind of characterization of the fact that they don't necessarily run the ball efficiently, but they do run it. They have a low average separation at 28th, but like that, Seattle does as well. This is where we get back to some of the mirroring here, Brendan, where both of our receiving cores don't exactly get a ton of separation, but this is what's going to happen on short passing attacks. Short passing attacks don't allow as much of that separation. And what they do is that they do these short, and then they hit you deep. Both of these two offenses do that. And that's why you get a little bit of a higher yard per attempt for both of these two teams because of that, despite the fact that they do a lot of living in some of the shorter, passing attacks. So you mentioned like what Seattle does as far as the box count goes, and the fact that they do tend to be a defense that wants to live in a lighter box. Big key on this one is Seattle wants to be in a light box a majority of the time defensively. So 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers. That's where they want to live against your essential 6 offensive linemen, or 5 plus the running back. But this is a game where all these teams have been trying to drive towards stacking the box up against the Rams. So it can be interesting to see which way. That's where you were asking about it. I don't know which way, what's going to give on this one a little bit, one way or the other. What is interesting is that this is not the outside zone sort of team that maybe we've seen in the past back in the early years from the Rams. 54% of their runs are going inside, and that is one of the higher rates in the league. I don't know if the reasoning on that is some of the lighter fronts like we do, where we've got the 2-man front and the outside guys, and they're just trying to attack some of those gaps in there. But that's where they do tend to live. They don't do as much of the outside stuff. So how you defend the run is going to be a big, important key in this game, Brendan. But how you defend the run inside specifically, because that is where they attack with Kyron. That's where they go after. So, yeah, I think you got to stop the run first, but you can kind of concentrate on the inside of it a little bit. I don't know if I'd want to do the blitz thing. This is the thing I don't understand, Brendan, why teams are doing this. And this is also why I've said, I don't, this is why I've told you, I think they see the 13 personnel, these teams like us with our 12 personnel and then are with us condensed splits. I think these defenses just see it and then they just do this one size fits all approach. Because like what reality is Matt Stafford the 7th highest blitzed against quarterback in the NFL? Like, how does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I was going to say that really doesn't make any sense. He might be, of any quarterback in the league right now other than Aaron Rodgers, the guy you want to blitz the least. And at least with Rodgers, he's, every other week he doesn't really have it, so you can kind of get away with it there. But yeah, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me at all. I don't know why you'd be blitzing. I sincerely hope that Seattle's planning on not doing a lot of blitzing this week. I hope that they're trying to get pressure with their front, because I think they can. I think that their front can get pressure against this group.
I think Mike is a little bit more imaginative. That's where I've come back to. I just think that this is a lack of defensive coordinators having a lot of different answers for this thing they're facing. It's like you go into your book, it's like, oh, stack, we got 12, 13 personnel. What do we do? Okay, it says here that we got to stack up the box and then blitz heavily off the back of stacking up. That's what we do. That's what we're doing. And that I feel like it's happened with us all year. Like even with teams, Brendan, that don't stack boxes and blitzes, they still do it. It's finally now the past couple of weeks starting to, if you look at the numbers on NFL stats on this, it's finally starting to just a little bit come down from that high water marker where it had been across the board. But I'm convinced teams just came into this year a little bit. They didn't have a preparation really strongly in place for how to deal with these heavier offensive fronts. And so they just go back to that old rule book. And it's part of what it's getting it carved up. It's part of Stafford's carving it up. Darnold's carving it up, because it doesn't work. You got to come with a little bit more of a creative attack than that. I think Mike will. And to your point on this as well, we don't blitz by nature. So I don't think that Mike's going to suddenly extend outside of what his general nature is, especially when teams haven't had success with it, trying to do that very alternative approach against Stafford throughout this year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Stafford yeah, is not necessarily a guy who's going to be elusive at this point in his career. Like we've talked about how sometimes it seems like he can barely get out to get the handoff off. Like he's a statue back there. I think you can probably get him off his game with your front.
Well, I think that's why they stopped doing the outside zone with him, Brendan, about getting to the handoff. Because remember last year I was
Yeah.
joking. It was that, dun 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 dun. It's him giving a handoff. Dun 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 dun. He's out of breath. He can barely extend. He's got to like extend it all the way out to get the handoff on the outside zone. I mean, it was hilarious last year watching him try to get out there on that. And he's got pocket mobility. Like he's got some stuff he can do, but he's definitely does not have the legs to hold when he's got.
Remember when Jay Cutler came out of retirement and they asked him about his ability to like move and stuff, and he said, "Well, I'm a quarterback. I don't really need to do that, so I'm not worried about it." That was the all-timer, and yeah, it's not that simple, unfortunately. Jay got away with a lot based on his talent in his career, so he was probably expecting that. Again, didn't happen, and it is amusing to watch, but somehow, some way, he might be on his way to his best season ever. Anyway,
he's having the best year of his career, man. I mean, that's saying something, but he is. He's playing his most efficient. Is going to have as much production as anywhere across the board, from yards to touchdowns passing, and didn't see this exact season coming, but he still nails.
All right. So we got a couple donos here. Let's take a look at what we got here. Steve, thank you for the $2. Calling it Seahawks and Colts Super Bowl. Love the channel.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. I think that the DVOA folks put together their charted projections of who would be the likeliest based on their DVO rankings, and they had, I think, the Seattle Seahawks and I think it was the Colts or the Bills. I think it was the Seahawks and the Bills, and then they had the Hawks and the Colts as the third likeliest scenario. So certainly I could see that playing out the way that the season's going, Steve. I'll take that matchup in the Super Bowl, that's for sure.
Yeah, that Colts offense with all the stuff they're doing versus this Mike McDonald defense, that's cinema right there. That's what football should be all about.
Amen. It'd be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that could be. Do you think Jonathan Taylor might win MVP this year? Do you think it might happen?
Yeah, it's probably going to get close to doing it. I mean, he's basically on pace to replicate Sean Alexander's season where he won the MVP. I mean, almost all the way down the line, even with the touchdown that he set with the record that year. So if Sean won it that year, I don't know how you don't give it to him this year. Stafford doing what he's doing and statistically what he's set to put up is going to push it very hard. But I mean, Taylor's he's not just getting the touchdowns too, he's getting the busting off the 70-yard runs, and I think that's going to stick in people's mind a little bit, but it is hard for running backs to win it. It does tend to be a quarterback award. So probably Stafford would be your number 2 there, but I definitely see it.
Yeah. I have a kind of a hot take here. I'd actually give it to Daniel Jones before Jonathan Taylor, because here's the thing. That Colts offense was terrible last year. This year, they're one of the best offenses in NFL history. And the only thing that really changed is they went from Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco or whoever it was to Daniel Jones. So to me, I look at the way the offense transformed, and there's a big part of me that's like, if we're talking about value here, it's got to be Jones, right? His presence single-handedly made the Colts go from, I think, 24th in EPA per play to one of the greatest offenses ever in EPA per play.
I think I could be talked into that. I think I would just, I guess, say that if I've got, a whatever guy back there is running back right now for the Colts, do they put up the same season that they're having right now? How much of Taylor and the attention you have to provide to Taylor helps out the passing game then for Daniel to do what he's doing? And he's able to take advantage in ways, like your point, a guy like Richardson couldn't. So it gets a little bit hard to kind of peel one from the other from my perspective on this a bit, but I also just think that it's an all-time season, 1,900 yards, 26 touchdowns. That's what Taylor's on pace for. Running backs don't put up those type of seasons. You're flirt with 2,000 yards. You're going to flirt with being right around the touchdown record. You're probably going to win the MVP. If I'm not mistaken, too, when LaDainian Tomlinson set the record over the top of Sean, I think he won it as well.
He did.
So I've got a couple of historical markers working in my favor with where it has been given in the past to these guys when they put up this kind of season. And that's even with both quarterbacks at the time playing well around those two running backs. It wasn't like those running backs had nothing happening at the quarterback position with both those two teams. It's just that they had such a crazy amount of production.
Yeah, it's one of those things I can't get out of my head that Taylor was on the Colts last year and their offense sucked. They had one of the worst offenses in the league. And the only thing they really improved was the QB, and it just launches into the stratosphere. I'm like,
I think
that's an MVP to me.
Yeah, but there's some more stuff here too, right? Like there's the interior of the offensive line where they kicked two not linemen out. There's injuries they had last year on their offensive line to key starters that weren't as much able to play last year. So like the combination of those two, you flipping out your center and your right guard, and then you also having just better health on the offensive line in general with guys like Quentin Nelson and able to roll fully 100% of the time. I think that that's also a bit of a contributing thing on this as well. I think it's hard for me to go to just one thing and say, well, this was the defining carrying factor there. I think it's a little complicated. I think that Colts team has been well put together for years and been waiting on functional quarterback play. But that's maybe why I wouldn't be as much on the Daniel part of this, is that I think that he certainly has played well. He certainly has played great. I don't think that he's necessarily playing MVP. I think he's benefiting from a very solid Colts roster. And it's more about speaking to the deficiencies of an Anthony Richardson than it is speaking to necessarily the greatness of Daniel Jones. I think he's playing well. I think he's improved, but I do fall in alignment of saying it's more of that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Last non-quarterback to win it was Adrian Peterson. So that was the last running back to do it after Tomlinson. So maybe it'd be kind of cool too, because that would increase the odds that JSN could win Offensive Player of the Year. Because if they give Taylor MVP, they might go, we took care of him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it speaks to it here how good these guys are having. That we're not talking about Jackson on pace for almost 2,000 yards, but yeah, that would be cool for Jackson at least get that one.
Mm-hmm. Dean Petrosor, thank you for the $9.99. Brendan, is it a mistake to predict a Seahawks victory after Dan's, and I think this is Sam?
Yeah.
Sam's terrible performance in the last two games against the Rams. What makes you so confident? All right, so there's a couple of things to talk about here. So first, I don't think it can ever be a mistake to predict a Seahawks victory right now. The team is playing at such a level where I think that we should expect them to win every game they play. Obviously, they're not going to win every game they play, but we as fans are at the point where I think we should kind of be like, yeah, we're each game we go into, we recognize some might be tougher than the other, but I think we should pretty consistently expect to win these games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you've earned the right at 7-2 and how you played to be very confident coming into this. You're good health-wise, too, on top of playing really well. You've been blowing teams out, not just by skirting past them, but blowing them out of the water. And when it comes to Sam Darnold's performance against the Rams in those two games last year, I think there is some context that matters to this because there are explanations. Did Sam play his best ball in either of those two games of the year for the Vikings and how he played? No, probably not. The first game, he was cutting things up. He was scoring in that first half. Things were going really well on the road in the Los Angeles Rams on a primetime game. And then his left franchise tackle, Christian Darrisaw, went down. They brought Cam Robinson in there. Cam Robinson was as big a drop-off as you could get. This was them taking their starter, which would be like their equivalent to almost a Charles Cross, and then going to a Stone Forsythe, and then saying, Stone Forsythe, you're now going to be our starter for the entire rest of the year, including our playoff run. And that you could see that offense of the Rams or the Vikings at that point through the rest of the game completely kind of just collapsed. The pressure was constant coming off that blindside edge. You get down the line into the second Ram game, the situation even got worse for them, Dean, where now you've got your right tackle, Brian O'Neill, who's one of your better right tackles in the sport, also go down. And what do we know about the Vikings this offseason? They completely rebuilt their center and right guard position, taking them from the Colts. And that speaks to how not good those guys were playing on the inside in addition to that. So you've got awful offensive line play in that game. Sam under a ton of duress throughout the course of that game. And it forced a little bit of him to play bad. It's if you put a quarterback under a high pressure rate throughout the course of the game and you can't run the ball, you're probably going to get a bad quarterback performance. That doesn't necessarily speak to that quarterback having a deficiency against that team or they just got his number. More speaks to the fact that you got to protect your QB. You got to be able to run the ball to maintain balance. If you allow the Rams to pin their ears back and know that they don't have to deal with the run and they're just going to, and you've got a bad offensive line on top of it with guys out, that is a recipe for a disaster. But then that's not back on the quarterback. That's then back on the fact that you lost the talent and that you lost at the worst possible time against the worst possible opponent that can cook you up for that deficiency.
Yeah, and I just looked back at that playoff game last year, and obviously this was driven by the fact that the Vikings fell down quickly, but Darnold threw the ball 40 times in that game, and he got sacked, I think, another 9 times. So that's 49 dropbacks, probably 50 if you include a scramble or two. And that's not something that the Seahawks team will ever ask of him, I don't think. So,
That's right.
that's part of it too.
That's why I think to your point, that's why to me O'Connell got so much of a pass on both of those two games, especially the second game in the playoffs. And where, in my opinion, he didn't deserve the pass on that. How much of this comes back to your play calling? How much of this is you come into your point, a game against the Rams where you're ending up, I know you're down in that game, but you don't find that balance, that you don't find more of the shorter passing attack to dwell on, that you haven't dropping back on deep drops at times, holding the ball. Some of that comes back to O'Connell. And this is where football is complicated. There's a lot of different things to give out as far as praise or blame go. But when you put it on a single entity, that's where you're probably going wrong if you're putting it to just that, because there is so many usually other factors that come in. Sam could come in and just have had a bad game too, but that was not the case with those other things to me that were playing a part.
Yeah, and now Kevin O'Connell has to try to tame the beast that is 9 over there. So he probably misses Sam a little bit right now. Maybe we're learning he's not quite the quarterback wizard that we thought.
Well, to your point on that, hold on one second here, Brendan. I want you to show that. So I found this chart yesterday, and I was joking on my stream yesterday that this is what. Of course, I can't find it, right?
I may have seen this chart. Is it like the?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you saw it on Reddit.
Yeah.
The yards left on the deal with it, where he, you've got Sam on one end of the scale, and then you've got, here it is. I actually got right here. Sorry, one sec. Let me just send it to you real quick so you can show the people here.
Yeah. We're doing it live, people. We'll do it live.
Doing it live. All right. It's off to you.
All right. So, yeah, just give me 1 second here. But, this is the, completion percentage above expected in EPA per play, which is always some wonderful data to look at, I think. Let me get this uploaded in here. Here we go. And okay. So
there
that's just the chart itself. So obviously McCarthy's missed like half the season, right? So in fairness, it's a smaller sample size.
Definitely sample size. But boy, it's funny that they're both on the two ends of the scale on this, where Sam's at the top of efficiency and McCarthy's at the bottom of efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Boy, Dylan Gabriel, man. I don't know if I've ever seen a player look less like an NFL quarterback trying to play NFL quarterback since Tebow.
We couldn't understand where, if we just, we watched him as a prospect and we just sat there and we went, I don't know, this is not going to work, and they were hoping, I think, that they could get like a Brock Purdy situation there with him, but he's not Brock. He wasn't Brock coming out of Iowa State. And when asked to process, that Oregon offense is kind of it puts the training wheels on you and it lets you just kind of manufacture stuff at times from the QB position, especially all the playmakers they have out there.
Yeah. I didn't mind his arm. I thought his arm was okay, but he's still like 5'8". Like you can't do anything about that, right? There's nothing you can do about being 5'8".
Nothing you can do about it. There's certain throws you can't see, but then you've got to be the high level processor for a Brock Purdy and then have escapability on the back of it to where, okay, I've got the 1-5-2 10-yard split. So I can just explode away from a guy if he's on my back in the pocket and go get myself 7 freebie yards. Dylan doesn't have either of those two things in his back pocket. It's not just because he's a rookie. I don't know that him as a processor is ever really going to come along. With me, I just think that you have that as a quarterback or you kind of don't. You can moderately improve it, but you either do it or you don't. Like Jordan Love. I've hammered you with Jordan Love. Did you watch that game on Monday night?
Yeah, I did. And
he will not look at a second read. He almost refuses at times, does Love, to go to the second read. It's all pre-scripted play with LaFleur out there. It's funny to me that LaFleur's getting all this heat and nobody's going back to Love and being like, he's not taking the final Favre Rodgers step here, folks. Right?
Well,
you're going to LaFleur here, and it's like, that's not occurring, is it?
Yeah, I think LaFleur is doing about as good as he can, but you can't fire Love, so you talk about the guy that you can fire. I get it, but man, that's I don't know if that's fixable. Like, this is year 5 for him, and this is his
Swear-
3rd year as a starter.
he's got all the talent you could ask for him. He can be a position. Great arm, nice throw in motion. He's got enough mobility there to be a problem. But that's why I often, Brendan, hammer with you and say over and over again when we're looking at quarterbacks, arm strength and processing are the first 2 things I go to, because those are the 2 things that I don't think that you can create in yourself. You have it or you don't have it. You can moderately improve it, but it's either there or it isn't. And it doesn't usually come along, even with time. And then Love's kind of proven this out to be the case. I sat there and watched him all night. And I'm like, his head's driving to that first read every time. It never goes like this. We've seen a few games with Sam this year where he's 1, 2, 3, back to 3. None of that with Love will you ever see. It's always back. And then when he's off script, he's lost. He, like, with anything, he starts to improvisation, he'll have an open guy. And it's like, he can't complete the ball all the time. He's just like, he'll bail on quick, clean pockets. I'm very low right now on Love.
Yeah, I'm definitely there too. I think that honestly, LaFleur's doing a great job. I think that if you look at the offense he built last year, with and that with not great receiver talent. Green Bay has not had great receiver talent over the last several years. Him finding a way to manufacture these easy screens and stuff, like I actually think he's doing awesome. I don't know what else he's supposed to do.
I think he's doing fine too. I think Jacobs has kind of hit that running back wall a little bit this year when I watch Jacobs. I don't think he's like bad at this point, but he's like McCaffrey, where you're like, it doesn't look quite as explosive as I remember with Jacobs typically looking. And that's big part of their offense last year, was being able to lean on Jacobs to run the ball. And they take that same approach to your point on the receivers over and over again, right? It's all these second round guys. And I know with Watson and Golden, they took those guys in the first round, but they shouldn't have. Those should have been guys you take in more of a second round range, in my opinion. They always, like, what they should have done in retrospect, Brendan, to me, if you're going to do this, if you wanted to get that different, trade up and go get Tedero and McMillan. That's the move you go and go get the true defining wide receiver on the outside who can be really good for you. Not just another guy that's a solid guy that with some talent they've gone for years with there. They will not leave that lane a little bit and never find like the truly uber talented. Let's remember this is the team that with Brett Favre passed on trading for Randy Moss, even though Brett wanted it. They almost are allergic to going out there and getting, I know Jennings was great, but that's like the one success story. And I think that's probably keeps them on this path much longer than they should go.
Well, they just have to hope that somebody they get ends up ascending like Devontae Adams did, right?
Yeah, well, that's what they're doing. He's that great success story. And look, there's been the Jordan Nelsons, and they've had a history of guys who've been really good and solid. Randall Cobbs, and we can go through the litany of lists of guys. But what you probably need in this receiving core with Romeo Dobbs and Tucker Kraft and Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, you probably could use now. You have enough of those kind of guys. Now get a guy that I can trust one-on-one the outside. He gets that. He's going to win that matchup. Love can go to it, especially because Love doesn't want to go to multiple reads. So giving him the one read guy that he knows is going to get open and create separation on the route, all the much more reason you want that to drive your philosophy, in my opinion. So you can kind of protect yourself against some of the vulnerabilities of your quarterback a little bit there. When you're going with like 3, okay, you're going to have 4 wide, right? Here, Love, we're going to give you 4 wide. All these guys are kind of legitimate and really have a good chance of potentially generating separation. We're going to need you to go through the reads on it to go find the one guy who creates the separation, though, right? It's kind of 2 different pathways there versus the other, where we've like seen with JSN and Sam at times where it's like, I got one-on-one out there with JSN. I'm going to him. Like I'm trusting that matchup and I'm going to feed it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and Green Bay doesn't have any picks to fix this situation in the next couple of years. So this might be a blow against the idea of going all in on the trade. And, I personally hope it doesn't, because I like it when teams show some testicular fortitude and go for it. But this Parsons thing may not work out.
No, it may not. I mean, and look, the trade, as far as their perspective, he's brought what they hoped he could supply. I mean, that defense has been legit, and he has been a pressure machine there for them and coming off the edge. I think that they're probably just really shocked about it's been some of the other stuff, really not the Parsons move. It's the giving Aaron Banks $77 million. You and I freaking laughed our ass off at that move. He has been awful. He was not good with the 49ers. Why are you giving him that contract? What are we doing here?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I remember that. And and when I say it's not going to work, I mean they're not going to win a championship, because you don't make the Parsons trade to have Micah Parsons. You make the Micah Parsons trade because you win a Super Bowl with him at some point, right? So
yeah, to put you over the top. And I think you're right. This was their best year to do this year. And if they don't get it this year, that it's going to get only the harder. And they've got contracts on the books the last couple of years that are starting to kind of, your Xavier McKinney's and your Jacobs contract, and the Micah deal kicks in heavily into next year. And you've got, Rashawn Gary's getting paid on this team. So it's also one where they're not just sitting in really great cap space moving the future to just be able to find the corrections. They've got to kind of ride with what they got and hope it's going to be enough into the future. And it doesn't look like it's quite ready to be that.
All right. B. Schneid, thank you for the $4.99. Do you think Hawks might also value 2026 picks less because of K-Mac, Mills, etc., coming in as new players? Also, I think K-Mac is a good scheme fit. So what he's saying is we kind of think of guys like Kenny McIntosh and Riley Mills as being kind of like rookies next year, because we get those players back, so we don't need as many 2026 picks, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's maybe I think to the heart of what he's talking about here is with you, B. Schneid, is you've got to build roster up. I think more than even those individual guys, you're just looking at the roster in general and you're going, we have done so much the last few years in adding to this roster, and not just adding this roster with young players, but remember, we've done it with extra picks. The Russell Wilson year, extra picks. The year after the Russell Wilson trade, extra picks. This last year, you threw 2 extra picks onto the pile with the 4 selections you had in the first 2 days of the draft. You've done a lot of bringing in guys, especially early picks, that have kind of been guys that, and they've hit, that are, okay, that guy's a starter as I move forward. Okay, that guy's a starter as I move forward. And once you get to a place as a roster that you have less holes, yeah, I think there's less of a need to have all of those draft selections, because you can run into the predicament of where now you're drafting a guy in the 3rd or the 4th round. Your roster is so stacked, you get through training camp, let the best man win. Well, the best man's not the 4th round pick that you just made. Now you got to cut that 4th round pick for nothing. Was that the smartest way to go? Or anticipate a little bit of that upstream and then move that pick so that you don't run into that same process? And of course, we've had 2 receivers in John Schneider's era, 4th round taken, that were released in training camp, didn't even make the team. Because you were just so deep at those positions. So you got to think about that a little bit. It's going to help having a K-Mac back in there, Riley Mills in there, but it's more just taking a Riley Mills. Next year, you're going to have Byron Murphy. You're going to have Leonard Williams. You're going to have Jaron Reed. You're going to have Riley Mills. There's your 4 defensive linemen. I mean, you're already set next year with your 4 defensive linemen as it stands right now. Your edges, you're at least running 2 back next year as it is. We'll see what happens, with the other 2 guys around that, but you got 2 coming back, or 3 coming back, sorry, no matter what. We could go line by line on this, B. Schneid, but that's the way this roster works, going all the way through it, where you're just like, oh yeah, we're set there. Okay, we're set there. Okay, we're good there. We don't have a lot of need there. And so, yeah, why not move some of those picks at that point, if that's the case? And the final thing I'll say on this is, B. Schneid, it's looking like one of the weaker drafts in maybe the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's big at play here. I think that this draft it's going to be one of those drafts that comes up every now and then. Like, I think 2013 was a draft like that, where there just isn't a lot. There are going to be good players, but they're going to be harder to find. And especially with like the 4th round pick and the 5th round pick you gave up for Shaheed. Like, what would a 4th or 5th round pick in this draft turn into? Probably another Nehemiah Pritchett type, which, Pritchett, shout out to him. He did a good job last week, but you're not going to get a lot out of that. You're going to get way more out of a Rashid Shaheed, even if you only have him for half a year.
Agreed. I was thinking about this the other day, that I think Rashid Shaheed, and I wonder if John's kind of thinking about this a little bit, in that this is their Percy Harvin trade. And I don't mean Percy Harvin trade for a 1st rounder in the offseason, but in the impact of, remember what Percy Harvin gave to the team when he came back off that hip, and you're 3/4 the way into the year, and to be able to add that into the lineup. And look, he got in the Minnesota game, and then he was kind of out. He got in the New Orleans Saints game in the playoffs, but then he got his dome cracked and he was knocked out of it. Both of those 2 games, we think about the kick return, but both of those 2 games, remember, the Vikings and with the Saints game in the playoffs, he helped you in those games. He was a very big factor, especially that Vikings game, which that helped you in the Viking game to get the 1st round bye in what was going to be a very tight NFC there, to getting that 1st round bye. And I wonder if John looked at it the same way with the Shaheed thing, where it's like, it's not that every game he's giving us some 70 yards receiving and 20 yards rushing. It's that we're going to have these select times we can lean on him in certain games to help us go get a dub in a game we might not otherwise, because he could be a bit of a difference-making factor there a bit.
Right. And that's certainly worth more than what you're getting in the 4th or 5th round this year, or next year, excuse me.
Yeah. Amen.
So let's see here. Taker, thank you for the $2. Our 2 losses are by a combined 7 points.
I think it's similar too with the Rams on this one. They've got the close loss on the Eagles that was ended on the kick, and then I forget the other.
They
They
lost to
lost to the Niners.
they lost to Mac Jones in overtime.
So it's very same. Both these two teams, and this is part of what makes this matchup so awesome, Brendan. These teams, I know all fans we all like to play this game. We can play it the other way too, where it's like, well, you also could have 4 losses though, too, right? The Cardinal game, but both of these two teams could be 9-0 right now coming into this game, legitimately. Like it's a ball bounce here, a ball off the helmet there. These two teams would be 9-0 coming into this one, and that's why this matchup is partly so fun. Is that you're having two teams that are dominant, two teams that are deep and great across the board on both sides of the ball. We got a little bit of an inroads on special teams with them, I think, a little bit, but that makes this just so much of a fun matchup coming in this week because it's just strength on strength, dominance on dominance, and who wins out.
Right. So, it's definitely one of those things where we haven't had that game yet where you as a fan feel like you can't take the team seriously anymore. And we've had that game a lot in recent years, that game where you get drilled to the point where no matter what happens the rest of the year, this is not a true contender. And it is what it is. Like a couple years ago, the Ravens, right? They ran for 350 yards on us. We knew then.
Oh, you're good. Sorry, I'm listening to you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, you keep saying, sorry.
Last year, the Bills game, year before that, I think the Niners blew us out both times. We haven't had that game yet.
No, we haven't. You've hung out with every team. That's probably, to your point, a representation of them taking the steps they're taking forward a little bit as a team, and that this is that progress you're making and that you can feel tangibly almost week in and week out with this team as they seem to get bit by bit better and better and better. And Mike's done a great job here in bringing this team along as he has. To your point of avoiding those bad losses, having this team ready to play. I mean, hell, we're going for, what is it, our 11th straight win on the road, 12th straight win on the road here this week?
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's just amazing for a first-time coach, and to have this team ready to go like he has and had them just ever improving. It's hard to do.
Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $1.99. Is this the game where Okada and Thomas get exposed? I mean, if there's any coach out there that's going to do it, it would probably be this guy, right? In fairness, but I have a decent amount of trust in both those guys at this point. They've been playing too well.
Yeah, I think that they have been playing really well. I mean, it is possible, Dylan, and Brendan says if there's a quarterback that can take advantage of this, he'd be the one. Thomas, I think you're more going to take advantage of him in the run game, ability to get off blocks, second level climbers, sometimes with his size, tackling guys. Kyron Williams, not easy guy to bring to the ground. So Okada outside the Tampa Bay game, he had a couple moments in that, but he's really cleaned things up, especially coverage wise. Had an incredible pick a couple weeks ago. I would tend to think that no, it's not going to be, but we'll see. I mean, there's certainly a possibility of it with Stafford, but I think these guys they're playing so solidly all the way down the line in how they're playing that I just don't think that they're that kind of player in that way. I think that would have been exposed by this point with how much game action both of them have played in so far this year.
Yeah, if the Rams don't have Adams, or Adams can't really do his normal stuff, I think that's a much bigger deal than us having Okada and Thomas out there. Like, I'm not sure what they do offensively if Adams is out. That's so important to them. Like that might be a crippling blow if he can't go.
Yeah, to your point, they've also down Tutu Atwell. So Atwell would be your outside other guy. If Devontae's out, then Adams is the guy that Atwell's the guy that comes out there to provide at the very least your deep threat, run the coverage off so Puka can run underneath, because a lot of what McVay does is those flood zone concepts where he needs that X to be able to legitimately take the coverage away so the guy running it behind will be open. So yeah, if he's not able to go 100%, that's super impactful to their offense. This has been a big driver of their success of all that. But we run the ball, we stay committed to it. We got the 13 personnel. We're going to work our tight ends, but then we have these 2 wide receivers at any point in time that we can always go to wherever in the game that we want to go to. And they're very likely to be open and I can hit it. And that's, Stafford knows how to use top end wide receivers. He's shown that throughout his career.
Yep. I'm not thinking Colby Parkinson's going to be the guy who beats us. Just a feeling.
I hope not.
That'd be very annoying, wouldn't it?
That would be very annoying. Yes.
All right. Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $4.99. Metal Hawk gifted my wife and I a Metal Hawk with our last name on it. Your
Oh,
dad is an awesome 12. Go Hawks, great
well,
show. Hawks 33, Rams 23, hashtag our NFC West. Yeah.
all NFC West.
Mm-hmm. It's so I'm not gonna I'm not gonna get into it too much here, but there is one thing that's going on right now with Metal Hawk, who is my dad. He makes metal art. It's a hobby of his, and he has made some custom pieces for the 50th anniversary of the Seahawks, and he also made a Mariners medallion, and he's selling them off for charity to Fans for Good. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, look up Metal Hawk on Facebook or look up Fans for Good, and it's fans and then the number 4 and then good, by the way. If you want to know more about that. And there's an example of a Metal Hawk right up there on the upper left of Brandon's side of the screen. Yeah, if you want to go see what the custom pieces look like, I've actually been plugging in most of my videos lately too. So definitely check that out. But thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Peter.
Steve, thank you for the $2. I hope we never let Sam go and he finishes here. I'll tell you, this team has now been rewarded pretty massively twice for moving off quarterbacks earlier than other teams would. So I do wonder if we're just going to keep going back to that well until it stops producing water.
Well, I think that they will go with Sam for quite a bit of time. I do. Some of this will be, of course, dictated by how much he's going to want to be paid. Because to your point, I wonder a little bit about John Schneider's willingness to be paying guys at 50, 55 million if he wants to get back into that predicament like he did with Russell a little bit on cap hits. So that'll be the interesting part, but that's 2 years down the line for us to worry about there. I think that big part of the driver with Geno, I think was, I don't know if they were 100% sold all the way around on Geno. I think they were partially sold. And then the age part of Geno being at 35, 36 years old. So Sam comes off his contract still in just barely almost about to turn 30. I think that they're not going to have any worry on that next contract for sure. But I'm with you, Steve. I hope he's the long-term guy here. I've been so impressed by what he's done. I think he's turned not just the corner, but he's taken his game to another level. And I don't think I think it's going to sustain. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. But would you agree that most teams would have kept Wilson longer than we did and probably kept Geno longer than we did? If you look around the league, it is kind of in the nature of these teams to stick with the quarterback until the wheels fall off.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Kyler Murray situation with the Arizona Cardinals, right? Like they should have probably never given him the contract extension, but like teams definitely will hold on to guys. And especially if you drafted a guy, that seems to be as much the onus, Brendan. If you draft him and then you paid him on top, oh my God, you can't let him go. Yeah, I think a lot of GMs would have made that other choice. It's part of why so many people hammered John, I think, for both with the Russell trade and with the Geno trade at the time, both separately, and saying, oh, Seattle didn't do this right. Seattle got this wrong. But that's also to me where the narrative on this that approaches this nationally and the outlook of QBs is one to where it's like, this is where the teams that are the smarter teams are the teams that pivot off quicker. The Rams pivoting off Goff for Stafford, the Eagles pivoting off Carson Wentz to then eventually get themselves around to Jalen Hurts. I do agree. You're 100% right that it is the modus operandi of most teams to stay in that lane and hold for too long. The smart teams, the good teams are those ones that are able to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more quicker to react on this type of stuff and not necessarily just hold on to a guy with a death grip because they're scared of the alternative.
Yeah. So I do think that Darnold will get another contract from Seattle after this contract. I don't doubt that. But after that contract is up, I do wonder if we have another instance like this where the kind of assumption is, oh, you're just going to keep him because he's your quarterback and you ride or die. And then Schneider decides, no, I'm doing it again. I'm going to flip it again, and we'll see if this keeps working out. And it's worked out so well for him twice now. I kind of do feel like he'd probably lean that way because it does kind of feel like he knows something that a lot of other people don't.
Well, I'll tell you this. If John hasn't earned the right at this point to whatever he wants to do at the quarterback position, us to just give it a rubber stamp, I don't know what he's got to do to earn that. Or getting Russell right, getting Geno right, getting Sam right. You can maybe go, I don't trust him on offensive line. But when it comes to the quarterback position, John is seeing it clearer and understanding more than just about any general manager in this sport, especially considering he didn't land on these guys by landing on a top number 1 overall pick in the draft, and it's a no-brainer you select that guy. He grabbed guys that not a lot of people had faith in to be able to perform in the way they, in fact, all three. Very few people had the faith in that those 3 guys could perform to the place that they perform. So he's earned the benefit of the doubt on this one from my perspective. And if he wants to go a different direction, whatever he wants to do at the quarterback position, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be rubber stamping it. I'm going to be like, look, he's earned the right for whatever my personal opinion is on it to be like, look, I got to give the guy credit. He's gotten a lot of stuff right. That's not easy here.
We're both going to be throwing a fit here in 5 years when he trades Sam Darnold and brings in Quinn Ewers to be the next guy.
No, it was only a matter of time, man. It was all he's going to get back around to that at some point. He is. It's true.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe that'll work out too. I guess odder things have happened.
You just need that development time, Brennan. You just need that five-year period to get himself right.
PGZ, thank you for the $5. B-Dog and B-Dog salute. Stimpy's is 5 minutes from my house. I will pop in and say hello.
Let's go. Thank you, PGZ.
You can't just pop in for a minute, though. You got to stick around for a minute. We're going to be having the game on all the TVs.
Let's go.
Yeah. There tends to be quite a few people that show up to these things as well. It's not just NorbCam. It's I know they do like the Seahawks Fan of the Year presentation as well. They give out some awards to other people who are in the community of Seahawks fans that do stuff for like Fans for Good. I think I always forget his name, but the guy who spearheaded the effort to keep Seattle, the Seahawks in Seattle back in '97 and out of LA. I can't remember his name, but he's there sometimes. So it's a lot of fun stuff there.
Sounds good. I wish I could come check it out, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So before we proceed, you wanna tell the people about Sleeper?
Yes, sir. Sleeper is the what?
Let me find the right one here. Okay. I think that's good. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
All right. No worries. Sleeper, number 1 app running right now, sports app in the game. Yeah, there's a lot of options out there. You may have one that you've been on that's a different app than this, but this is the best one for my money and Brendan's money. And why? Not just because they're supporting our channels throughout the course of this year, but because they've got some really great selections every week to pick from, especially on the over-unders, which me and Brendan tend to like to be in on that. This is now opened up in the state of Washington where there have been some restrictions prior, so you can now use this app in full. And when you use the app, you get matched up to 100% of your first deposit when you use either our code, either Brendan's SBN or my code NEST. They'll match up to 100%, $100 of your first deposit. But wait, there's more because they'll also give you a free $20 just for creating a login. Don't even have to use a code. $20 from us to you just through the app, just creating the login. So $120 in your pocket from us to you. And all you got to do is use our codes. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their site for details.
Yeah, it's free money, people. You can't beat free money.
Free money, baby.
All right. So let's take a look at these Seahawks over-unders that we got. Let's see. Looks like we do have a free one here with Stafford over half a yard. I think he's good for half a yard.
I think you can get that.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. And what else do we got here? Let me know if anything stands out to you.
Cooper Kupp revenge game. Yards over the yards on the Cooper Kupp.
Okay. I like it. He's telling us to not call it a revenge game, though. So I don't know.
They always say that. Players always say that, man. They always take the higher road.
All right. So then I am going to go with, let's see here. Kind of tempted to do the Terrence Ferguson thing because I think Adams will be either out or limited. So a guy like that might bring in a touchdown with no Adams out. I'm tempted. You know what? That's like a big multiplier as well. So let's go with the Terrence Ferguson, and let's get one more. What do you like?
How about Puka Nacua over the yardage with Devontae At that he'll get worked a lot.
Okay,
as
so let's see
what yardage for him.
His is probably going to be pretty high. Yeah, 87.5. So it's pretty high.
I'm okay with that. I think he's getting 12, 13 targets in this game. So.
All right, so that is our ticket for this week. We got the free pick on Stafford over half a yard, over on Puka 87.5, Terrence Ferguson with an anytime touchdown, and Cooper Kupp going over 30. Again, remember to utilize promo code either SBN on my end or NEST on Brandon's end to get a 100% match on your $100 deposit and get your $20 free bet there as well. and go use your sporting expertise. If you think you know this sport, go to Sleeper and prove it and win some money. All right. So, okay. So back to this game. And since we just spent a bunch of time talking about the Rams offense, let's flip things over to the defense, where they have been very good so far this year. They have been, I think they are ranked like third or fourth in the league in points allowed. And I got to be honest, I know they've got a really good front, but I don't know how they're doing it when you take a look at some of this personnel. So,
Yeah,
tell me about them.
it's it's a Rams defense that with their front four. That's generally the way that they're going to be able to go after it. They're like us. This is back to that mirroring thing where there's a lot of light boxes to how they're going to run. There is a lot of trying to run inside on this Rams team. As you can see there, they got the 7th highest run rate inside. So they're both a team that runs inside, and they're a team that has teams try to run inside against them at a high rate. That's partly, as you mentioned earlier, the little bit of the lighter front that you get with this defensive line. So that's how you would typically try to attack that. But it's not just that. It's also that they run the light boxes as much as they do. And that's what you're going to try to do. And that's both Seattle and the Rams defensively want to run light boxes. You've got to be able to run against those light boxes because we've seen how hard it is to run against the heavier boxes. And we come back to, again, if they're running light, that means they're trying to take away coverage stuff from you. That's trying to drop bodies into coverage. They're trying to close down passing windows. So you've got to be able to run the ball against those lighter boxes. They're 5th in pass EPA, a little bit of a representation of the fact, like I'm talking about, they drop guys into coverage. They provide a lot of help back there. They're not going to put guys just on islands and hope to get in there. They're 10th in time to pressure, while Seattle's defense is 27th. So a bit of a stark difference between the two of them here, where they get their pressure very quickly when they get their pressure. When we get our pressure, and both teams get a good amount of pressure, but when we tend to get our pressure, it tends to take a little bit of time to get there, where the Rams, it does tend to get very, very quickly there. They're tight on receivers, 9th in average separation per route run. So they tend to stay pretty tight, but that's also partly by having all those guys dropping in coverage. So you're closing down those windows a little bit there. Seahawks pressure rate is 3rd highest in the NFL. Los Angeles is 12th. So though when they generate pressure, they generate it quick. They're not as high as us in overall their pressure rate. Still more into kind of more of a middle-ish of the road there a little bit when it comes down to it. Middle of the road and stack box rate. We'll see if they dial that up more against us with the condensed splits and stack boxes. But Brendan, big key here is you go down, you're going to do your 12 personnel. You're going to do your condensed splits. You're going to get the anticipatory light box and the Rams on the other side of it by the way that they played these games so far this year. You've got to, again, coming back down to this, hit and hammer the run. That's where a big part of the success in this game is going to come from, not in passing, but how you're actually able to run against this. Of course, this is how the Eagles were able to really take them down in the 2 games that they played them last year. So you've got to hit their light boxes inside, got to run the ball in this one. Yeah, throwing the ball, you need to be efficient with it, but I don't know if we're going to be high volume. I don't know if we're going to be seeing the passing game be what carries the day for us on this. There's some susceptibility to what you have with them at the cornerback position because Khalil Witherspoon's out. That's their best cornerback. They've got the Slim Reaper out there on the other side who's doing a good job for them. But this is where we come back to attacking the run game. When we're not running inside, Brendan, we need to be attacking on outside zone runs to Forbes' side of the field. You need to make that man tackle and tackle consistently. And I don't think the Niners did a good job of it last week, watching the tape, by the way. Didn't do a good job at all. Got to force that guy to tackle, but they're not as strong as us in the secondary. They're not as strong as us at corner. They're going to try to drop help to keep those guys protected. Got to run the ball. That's where a real big part of this comes into.
Yeah, that is something that I'm trying to figure out here because obviously the Rams, maybe more than any other team, and it's not entirely fair. I'm sure there's a team or two out there that's doing it more, but they are going heavy on the twists and stunts, just like they did last year. And it got to the point where during the offseason, when we were looking at the draft, we looked at a lot of players and we're like, that's a Rams defensive lineman right there. And the reason why we would say that is because they were the kind of player that you wanted to use on twists and stunts. So I am wary a little bit of what they can do up front. Like Byron Young's been great for them so far. They've got, of course, Jared Verse. But then I look at this secondary, and there is a part of me that's kind of like, how have they gotten the job done so well with this arrangement of secondary talent? Like Kobe Durant, the Slim Reaper, Darius Williams, Cam Curl was kind of an Didn't the Patriots just kind of throw him out the door? Or maybe it was Washington who did. I can't remember, but he was kind of
Yeah,
just
well,
anybody could
Washington
have
had
had him.
Martin there. They had Martin, so they had the heir apparent that they had drafted,
Mhm.
which is why they let him kind of go. He's been solid for them though.
Yeah, so it kind of feels like an island of misfit toys in the secondary. They got Emmanuel Forbes, who I think weighs like 110 pounds or something.
He's
At this
light.
point, I think he loses like 5 pounds every time I see him. So by this time next year, he'll be like the Olsen twins or something.
Yeah.
But how are they doing this?
Well, I think it's a lot of the dropping into zone, and then just your front four can generate the pressure, so you don't really have to blitz very high at a very high rate. They're 27th, we're 31st in blitz rate, so it's, to me, light boxes, trust the front four, drop more guys into coverage. Any quarterback that's going to be faced with, by and large, 7 guys dropping into coverage in a 4-man front is going to see passing windows pulled down pretty far. And then you've got to know with that too, that they're dropping these guys in coverage. And then a lot of the onus of the offense is in facing this Rams defense. Watching the Houston game at the start of the year, the first game of the year, CJ understood his line was crap and that he had to get that ball out of his hand ASAP, whether the receiver's open, whether he had to throw it at a guy's feet just to make sure he got the ball out of his hand. So some of this is the fear of the pass rush of the Rams dictating to offenses to throw the ball super hyper quick to not put themselves in harm's way when it comes to that pass rush that they can supply. Whether or not that pass rush is as good as it's been like last year, Brendan, which I don't think it necessarily has been. Braden Fisk, I think, is having a bit of a sophomore slump. Jared Verse is still not quite taking that Will Anderson next step kind of level that everybody was anticipating he would this year. He's been good. He's not been bad, but Byron Young's been the better edge rusher between the two of them this year.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of that reputation stuff based in there, so a little bit, and that sort of puts the fear of God in these offenses already to begin things. But for my money, that's basically how they've been doing it. Is they just drop so many guys back. They've been playing solidly, some of these corners too, and how they played it back there. But it's not necessarily just pure talent. It's them giving their guys the help, and they can do that because teams aren't making them be punished for the light boxes, punished for dropping all those guys into coverage.
Yeah, some of this is because they're always playing with the lead, but I think as of like last week, the Rams were 3rd in total pressures according to Pro Football Focus in the league. So they're finding a way to get pressure even with, like you said, Jared Verse not ascending.
Yeah, pressure rate for them is 12th right now. So they might have total pressures, like on the volume basis, they might be on there, but just on the pressure rate itself, it's at 12. So yeah, to your point, they're playing with the lead most of the time in these games. Even I think the Eagles game that they lost, eventually they were up in that game for a lot of the games. The Eagles were having to pass a lot there to make it go. So that's, definitely a big. They still are doing good. They're not bad in the pass rush area at all. They're still able to be, they're going to be a problem, especially if you have to hold on the ball for a long period of time.
What about what they've got going on at inside linebacker? Because I'm not overly familiar with their 1-2 there. They've got Nate Landman and Omar Spates. I don't know much about either guy. What can you tell me about them?
Rams' recent approach to the inside linebacker position has been one where they almost devalue it as much as any position on their team. They don't really go out there and put a lot of assets into the position. Of course, they didn't pay Ernest Jones kind of famously, despite the fact he kind of earned a contract there. They brought in Nate Landman. He's in there to be a hammer in the run game. So he's there to basically clean up issues as far as a run defender goes than what they've had the middle linebacker position in the past there. And he's a really good tackler. He's a really good run defender. You can get after him in coverage. That's where he's going to have some susceptibility. People haven't been able to really attack them yet with him on that so far this year, and he's playing good football for him. And Spates is just a guy out there. They get by with just jags at the inside linebacker position. Landman's a little bit better than that, as he's legitimately a good tackler, legitimately a good run defender. But he has deficiencies to his game, and they're just not worried about it as much. They just look at it as it's a devalued position that they can compensate for things that aren't as strong there.
Yeah, just overall, when I look at this defensive roster, and then I look at the fact that the Rams are top 5 in scoring defense, my first thought is honestly, I think that Rams DC is due a head coaching opportunity soon. I guess it's Chris Shula.
Grandson of Don.
Yeah, he it seems like he's very good. It seems like he's getting a lot out of not a low level of talent, but I would not call this a high level of talent overall.
No, I wouldn't either. And to your point, some of this comes back to you play with a lead. You start out with leads in games. It is going to make your defense look better over the course of the game as you can, narrow in the offensive play calling into being more pass centric. You can take out the run game. You can start to skew things in a way that makes your D look better by doing that. And I think that that's a little bit at play there with the Rams team too. In addition to that, but they're playing good football. They don't beat themselves. They don't give up a lot of big plays. You really got to earn your way with them to get your points. No easy outs.
Mm. Real quick, special teams, just because I want to explore everything with a game like this. And look, in a game like this, special teams could absolutely be the deciding factor. It would not surprise me if there was a special teams play that decided this one. So I believe they've had a little bit. No. Okay, so Joshua Carty's actually been their kicker all year. He's been not very good, so that's notable.
Their special teams unit is struggling, and Rams fans would acknowledge this right now. If we're the number one DVOA team in special teams, the Rams are not. They're not close to it. And I think you bring up a good point here. Special teams can be one that we forget about a little bit. And look, it's not going to be as impactful as offense or defense, but the fact that we built our special teams unit to be a number one DVOA special teams, and you come into a game like this, to your point, neck and neck between these two teams. So many things that mirror between these two teams. So many things that we're even Steven on. You come right down the line where you're neck and neck. And what can be that thing that gives you the nose past the finish line? A special teams play, a punt return with Rashid Shaheed, Dixon flipping the field, Myers hitting a 55-yarder for game. These can be the thing that are the separators there. And I think it's a true part of the puzzle of this game, Brendan, because we are so dominant at it. And also because the Rams do struggle in it. They gave up a nice punt return last week to the 49ers, in addition to the kicking game. And the kicking game, by the way, with Carty, not been accurate. But the whole kicking thing, the whole process with blocking and all of that, like what happened on the Eagles play with the block that got returned for a touchdown, there's some issues there with them as well, too, as how they're blocking stuff up. It's a bit of a kind of mess right now for them on that.
Yeah, I can't remember if this was Cardi or not, but people have been posting cut-ups of certain kickers kicking field goals versus other kickers, and some of them take a lot longer to get to the ball after the snap than others. And it's interesting. That's something you don't ever really think about, but some kickers are really good at just getting to the ball fast and getting it up. And then other kickers, it's almost like they're just like walking to the ball, and it gives the blockers more time. I don't think it was Cardi, but it might have been, who was like really slow.
It makes sense. That certainly explains some of the issues they're having with that, with stuff getting blocked and the timing just kind of thrown off a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see here. We got a couple more super chats. Outdoors for Life. Thank you for the $5. I agree. Rams faced a Vikings O-line in that game that was horrible. This team is very different. I don't understand Vegas odds favoring the Rams so much. Well, the thing to remember with Vegas, their goal is to figure out what the public thinks and find like the middle ground. So you have a Los Angeles-based team against a Pacific Northwest team. They know where the bets are going to go, and they set it accordingly. So it's more of a reflection of where the median sports bettor is, and the median sports bettor knows the Rams a lot better than the Seahawks because one's in LA and one's in Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to this. Where the action's at, where the action is going is going to be a big determinant on this. I might say too, Brendan, I mean, the Vegas doesn't got a good idea of us, and they haven't for 2 years now. I mean, both last 2 years, they've had us at 7.5 wins. So they just kind of feel like, to me, a team that doesn't really, or not a team, but they feel like, to me, an entity here that just doesn't really understand Seattle too well, and that they don't have a good feel for us as a team in general terms.
Yeah. And again, that could just be a reflection of the fact that they know that the median sports bettor doesn't respect the Seahawks. But you're right. They're clearly getting something wrong. And I have to believe that there are people out there making a lot of money on that these last few years, because those lines made no sense when they came out. Like 7.5 wins with the easy schedule we had this year was kind of insane.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me. And I've looked at it for a 10-year period, Brendan. It's been a 10-year problem with Vegas with us. Like, they've tended to get us wrong, and they tend to miss by multiple games at that when they miss our win mark. I'm talking about that specifically. So I don't know why, a little bit on it. It is just a little bit of the way that they roll with it. And, look, the Rams have been playing really well. So I think they're giving them just three points in this game. I think Vegas is. And the 3 points that comes from their Outdoors for Life is That's the home team gets 3 points by Vegas as a natural measure. You have even
Yeah.
teams, it'll be a 3 points that you give to the home team. So they're basically telling you that these teams are even by their outlook of it.
Yeah, and we know what happens with these games in LA sometimes, so they're not wrong in kicking them a little bit of an advantage, because the game is in LA. Like, I'm already prepared for my mental health to take a nosedive this Sunday with some of the things the referees might get up to, honestly.
Yeah, we've had a couple of games with the Rams that have been a little bit. The Puka Nakua hold with Devin Witherspoon a couple years ago. The DJ Dallas play where he gets hit at the end of the game a couple years ago, where we were trying to drive down for the touchdown. I would like to see this hopefully not be we've had so many well officiated games this year. I hope this is not the one where it goes off the rails, because it has happened against the Rams team in the past before. I will say that.
Yeah.
Really quick on Outdoors for Life too. I just brought up the Viking game from the Rams game in the playoffs. This is off the PFF scores on this game. So Cam Robinson was 39.5. Their right tackle, David Quisenberry, filling in for Brian O'Neill in that game, was a 42.6. O'Neill was a 42.8 before he went down to an injury. 25 hurries in that game. 25 just hurries alone from allowed by the Minnesota Viking offensive line in that game with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so hopefully we're going to get something a lot better than that this Sunday, and we should. I guess Gray Zabel has a heel injury, but I imagine that he's going to be fine. So I think we're good.
He's still practicing, so that's a good part of it.
And hey, Anthony Bradford's had 2 really good games in a row, actually.
How about that, man? He has. He looked good. He's getting some pancakes out there. He's laying some good blocks. He's good being holding up in pass pro. It's very impressive. It'd be a great development for us if Oluwatimi and Bradford can just solidify that thing down on that side.
Yeah, then you really don't need draft picks next year.
No, sir.
You can you can trade the whole class for Crosby.
Let's go. I'm in. I'm in.
Well, we can keep the 6th round pick so you can get a running back, but other than that.
Yeah, but you can get those in the 6th. Undrafted rookie free agent, we'll find that.
Yeah. I like the Texas guy, Quintravion Wisner. For some reason, they're not playing him, so his draft stock has plummeted, but I like him. He's another one of those Texas running backs. Feels like they have one every year.
They do. They always kick one out, and they're usually pretty decent when they get on the pros.
The Holy Hand Grenade, thank you for the $2. Everyone wanted this game flexed to Sunday night. Well, I'll tell you something. The Eagles might be a good team. They are not a fun team to watch. They are actually kind of miserable to watch. And I don't care how good they are. Nobody wants to watch them play the Lions. Like there's nothing fun about watching AJ Brown run the same 3 routes the whole game and then get mad on the sideline.
Boy, his anger has been weirdly confusing as far as like, you're winning Super Bowls, my guy. Chill out. I would have loved to see the game flexed. I know everybody's like, well, we can't flex out the Eagles and Lions. Well, why can't you? It's a better matchup. Flex it out. But I think that the part of the factors in here is just that you only get 2 flexes by the NFL through the back half of the schedule. So they have to pick very carefully which ones they do that with. And they've already got a great matchup. They're just going to stay with a great matchup, but would have been cool. I agree.
Yeah, I would not have minded it. Although when we have primetime games, that means I'm staying up later because I got to go do my stream, and then I got to make the video, then I got to stream again, then I got to make another video, then I got to do this, and and it's like it's already 2 a.m. It's like, oh boy.
Oh, I know, man. It's a 5 in the morning for me too on those days.
Yeah, at least this way I can get done by a normal time and have a normal night.
Yeah.
Okay, we got Kraken Smack with the $5. Can't wait for the next NFC roundtable with the Hawks winning against the Rams. Hawks for the win. I can feel it.
It's been fun going in there, man. Stacking these wins up. It's been fun going in there. This roundtable, Brendan, they have a bunch of Sam haters in there, so it's been fun every week watching them eating crow as you know, you can't get them convinced. So yeah, I've been enjoying this year on the roundtable. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, what's the Cardinals guy on roundtable? It's not Jesse, is it?
Mike on AZ Sports Fan.
Yeah. Where's he right now? It's been a tough month and a half. How's he holding up?
The Cardinal fans are going through it right now. They're really going through it because they talked themselves into this year being the step taken, and he's having a hard time too. Because I was the one guy in the roundtable at the start saying I think the Cardinals are only going to win 6 games this year. I'm not buying in that next step of development, and they were all like, "What?" And now it's like, I told you, Kyler can't see over the top of the line, man. It's not the guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're full on like ready to fire Gannon, everything's on the table right now. Like, so it's a little dark there in the Cardinal land, Cardinal country.
It seems fundamentally wrong to let Gannon go before he gets a chance to get his quarterback. But if your plan is to let him get his quarterback and then fire him next year, you may as well do it now, I guess.
What about this? Would you do it if you have LaFleur on the line?
No, you get LaFleur at that point. You throw everything you have at LaFleur. Yeah, that guy's really good. And there's no evidence that Gannon is good.
That's a fair point. That'd be the one guy that, to me, I'm with you on that. I would be wanting to kind of hold on to him and let him have a chance at the next quarterback. And then if you do have a guy like LaFleur, that does change the nature of the beast here a bit. But otherwise, you can't let these defensive coordinators not get their QB. This happened with the Titans with Vrabel. Vrabel only had Ever Tannehill. You didn't really find the next quarterback like Will Levis. Like you make some weird moves with Brown leaving. Like you got to let those guys have a legitimate quarterback and know that they're there to drive the defense and drive the team concept and instill a certain mindset in the team, and being that kind of approach of a defensive-minded head coach and what they bring. You've got to, as a general manager, then do some of the heavy lifting for them on that quarterback standpoint side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, I'm thinking about what's going on in New York right now, where Dable was the guy who wanted Jackson Dart, and then you fire him halfway through Jackson Dart's rookie season. That just seems like teams constantly find themselves in the cycle where they let the guy get the quarterback and then they fire him immediately after he gets his quarterback. And if the Cardinals keep Gannon, doesn't it just feel like that's going to happen again?
A good possibility of it, because if he doesn't go and have a successful year next year with a rookie quarterback and Jacoby Brissett, then that means he deserves to be fired at that point. I mean,
I don't know if he does, but he will be.
I don't think he does either. That's what I'm saying. I think that's where it'd be very easy then the team to do this. And this is why the Cardinals are bad, is that probably not. Some of it depends on the results. Like, is the defense playing well? Are you getting something? But they could also say, well, he's been here for 4 years. He's never got us to the playoffs. That's the bottom line. Let him go. Well, to me, that's not smart thinking on this, because you're not taking into account what he inherited, which was an empty, bare bones cupboard, and that you inherited Kyler Murray that you forced on him through the first couple of years to make it work. I mean, literally, that's what was told to him, I think, in the interview, was that you have to make Kyler work here. I mean, that's a hell of a thing to hand a coach and force them to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's yeah, and this is not really a good offseason to need a quarterback, right? You're
No.
What are you going to do? Throw $60 million at Daniel Jones? Are you going to
maybe
pick up Justin Fields? Because Cardinals aren't going to pick high enough to get Mendoza, and the other quarterbacks in this class have really just kind of fallen off the wagon completely.
Well, we've seen guys do this. They'll probably end up drafting a guy in the first round that's probably due to be a second round graded talent or a third round graded talent. And then we're like, dude, but again, this is why the Cardinals are the Cardinals. You're not doing anything with any sort of vision. You're just reacting in the moment to what's happening around you. It's not what smart organizations do.
Okay, so I think that's about everything. I think that we've talked about everything that need to be talked about, except we need a prediction. So I said in my video that I did for Bleacher Report this morning that if Ernest Jones plays and is capable of playing the way he needs to play to be effective, I say the Seahawks win 27-24. But if we don't, if we don't have Ernest Jones, though, or Ernest Jones is not himself, then I'm more like 30-24 Rams.
Yeah, I was noting it because I did a little shock noise there, because that's exactly the score I had yesterday. So 27-24 was what I've been prognosticating in this game. I think you're going to be able to run the ball as well as you've ran all year. I think that's going to help you control the clock. I think you have a defense set up that can be able to take care of Stafford where other defenses couldn't, specifically having the corners on the back end that can cover things up. The willingness that you have to be in sometimes light boxes to deal with those receivers on the back end. I think we're well suited. I think both teams are going to get some scoring. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think at the end of the day, your special teams and your ability to run the ball are going to win out. My keys on this, Brendan, let's see if you agree with this. I think that if a team can double up on these two things, you win this game. I know that we don't always like to get to the simplified place of things because so many things are complicated, but I think if you win the turnover battle, and whoever runs the ball better, you can get those two things in your back pocket for this game, you win the game. You buying that?
Yeah. I don't see how we don't win if we run better than them. Like that's been kind of the thing the Seahawks have, even when they're winning this year, not been able to do. If this team can suddenly run the ball, then I don't know how you stop them.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. We know the passing attack is as efficient and explosive as it is on that side, that's coming with it no matter what. So agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. And I look at this Rams secondary and I'm like, I feel like JSN and Rashid, I think those guys should be able to do some real damage. Like I know these guys aren't terrible, but I don't look at them and see a lot of greatness. I see a lot of guys who are just okay, and I think you can exploit that.
Agreed. I think Cup in there is going to find some holes. He's practiced against these guys. He knows where they're susceptible. He knows their defense too. As smart as he is, I think he's going to have some holes he finds for Sam too.
Yeah, and ultimately a game like this is why you hired Mike McDonald, to figure out how to stop this team specifically, maybe. Excuse me, even more than the Niners. Even more than the Niners.
I 100% agreed. This is what you brought him in to do, is for this kind of matchup to be doing what he can do. And first matchup last year, you did a great job in it. Second matchup, you were end of the season out of it. There was, motivation was probably on both sides of the ball, not the greatest with both the Rams and the Hawks coming to that one, given the stakes. But first game, you did a good job with a lot of 3 and outs, just getting them off the field. Let's do that again. And let's go get this win, Brendan.
Yep. So assuming we have Jones, and it looks like we will, I got 27-24. And so do you, apparently, right? You said 27-24?
My exact score I've been sitting on this year. Not just today. I've been doing the last couple of days. So I don't know. Maybe we're seeing something psychically in alignment here, Brendan. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And if we do find a way to get it done, you're going to wake up on Monday to a completely different NFL landscape. Everybody's going to be talking.
Good luck calming down Hawk fans at that point, man. Seattle, we're dreaming big this week. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. And I mean, there was that, I think it was on Pardon the Interruption the other day, where the guy was trying to teach people how to pronounce Mike McDonald's name, because he was, trying to say, like, I know people don't know about this Seattle team, but they're doing really good. So it's not McDonald like the restaurant, it's McDonald. So yeah. I don't know if you saw that or not, but
I did.
Yeah, they're going to know how to spell his name if we can win this one.
Yeah, you'll know my name after this game, sucker.
So
pronounce it right.
Do whatever it is that you can do to help them on their way. If you're going to, if you are somehow going to this game, I know it's in LA, but we know that they have seats available to road fans. So if you find yourself there, then do everything you can to support the boys. And if you're watching from home, like most of us, then throw your support behind them in whatever way you can, because this one we may look back on at the end of the year and say this game determined who won the division. So let's get it, and let's get out of here, and let's hope for great things on Sunday. And of course, we have to end this one the right way. So I'm going to hit it. We're going to go, and I will see you guys later. Brandon, thank you for doing this with me. Thank you, everybody who was in the stream today. And of course, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.